Hey, Mike, I'm thinking about shaving my beard. What would that leave me with?
A bald chin.
A stash. Let's stash some guys. Producer.
Let's go, stashing guys.
Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and bigz. He is Grindberg. I am bigz. You're watching, and thank you for watching, the Fantasy Football Advice Network on YouTube. If you are new here, go ahead and hit subscribe, and then you can get all of our episodes. Also, go back and watch all the other ones. Share them, comment on them, etc. I think it's a pretty good show. So what we're doing today is we're talking about stashes, and we talked about quarterbacks and a couple tight ends in the last episode. Basically, what we're doing is towards the back ends of our drafts, we're taking guys that have a little bit of upside. They may not have a job immediately, but down the road, stranger things have happened. So the first couple that I'm going to talk about today are both wide receivers, and the first one now. It's interesting because he was the second 49ers wide receiver taken in the 2024 draft. I'm talking, of course, about Arizona Wildcat or former Arizona Wildcat wide receiver Jacob Cowing, who transferred to Arizona from UTEP and then absolutely exploded. Now, some people say that was a senior year explosion and you want to look for a guy that has a breakout sooner. He's also only 5'8" and 171 pounds. But he's super shifty. He runs great routes. They've shown some videos from camp of him and Ricky Pearsall running routes together. And one of the things that I noticed is that Jacob Cowing is very deliberate in his movement, and Ricky Pearsall was kind of like all over the place, kind of like a marionette. Like if you're trying to, there was just a lot of wasted, inefficient movement in Pearsall's route running, but Jacob Cowing was very direct. I was very impressed by that, and it really sent off a lot of triggers. I already was looking at Cowing as a better option than Pearsall, just because of his slot ability and everything. But over the last week, lots of stuff have come out of 49ers camp, like Brendan Ayuk trying to force a trade. That leaves a wide receiver spot open. Ricky Pearsall getting hurt. I think it's a hip flexor. That means Jacob Cowing will have the immediate Ricky Pearsall spot to come in, maybe return some kicks, but get on the field along with Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle. I mean, it's a loaded team, but Cowing has the ability to get open in space and really make the best of his situation, even if he only has, fourth round draft capital or something like that. And Pearsall, everybody loves Pearsall. Jacob Cowing's better, so I'm stashing him. My second guy, I'm a little bit trepidatious at this point. I don't really. This one's hard for me. So this is a wide receiver that last season was talked about in March of 2023 as a Sean McVay favorite. He was coming off an injured season where he was hurt, and so was Matt Stafford. But in his second year, he had a pretty good rookie year, had a pretty good second year, and he was hurt. In March, April, before the draft, everybody was talking about Van Jefferson in Los Angeles. And then come camp time, Sean McVay was saying publicly that Van Jefferson was the go-to wide receiver or the wide receiver 2 in that offense behind Cooper Kupp. A funny thing happened on the way to Van Jefferson's stardom after my flag plants. Puka Nacua became Puka Nacua. And Van Jefferson was relegated to nothingness and traded to Atlanta. Well, now he has found himself in another spot. Now, there are a lot of things to like about Van Jefferson. He's big. He's a tall guy. He's fast. And he comes from, his dad is a wide receivers coach in the NFL, and was an NFL wide receiver for a lot of years. So he's got that physical pedigree, that genetic pedigree. He finds himself in a new situation in Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh has George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, and they are going to have to figure out everything else. If Van Jefferson can outplay rookie Roman Wilson, and Calvin Austin, which doesn't seem like it should be too much of a big thing to do. Van Jefferson might have some actual value this year. I'm not flag planting him as a huge 1,000+ yard, double-digit touchdown flag plant like I did last year, but as a stash, just in case, maybe we'll see. You could do worse than Van Jefferson. Mike,
Yeah.
give me a couple stashes. I want some stashes from you.
All right. Well, I got a stash here that looks promising in 2024 redraft leagues, despite being a late round draft pick by the Broncos. He may be a late round wide receiver. He might struggle initially, but I think Troy Franklin stands out as an impressive college stats, and I think that those will lead him to a breakout in 2024. A small breakout. I wouldn't say a monster breakout, but I think he's going to have the opportunity to play often. He had a breakout in 2023 with Oregon, the Ducks, with 81 catches, 1,400 yards, and 14 touchdowns. And we know who his quarterback is going to be in Denver, his former quarterback, Bo Nix. So they're looking to have that chemistry. Franklin's draft position has dropped, making him a smart choice for fantasy managers looking to take a low risk, high reward gamble in the later rounds. But despite not shining all that bright at the combine with average numbers and average 40-yard dash time, Franklin's speed and agility are clear when you watch him play. He averaged 3.32 yards per route run and performed well against different defensive coverages, suggesting he could be a playmaker for the Broncos. I'm looking for him to, emerge as maybe the second option there in the passing game for Denver eventually, with Denver's top receivers dealing with contract issues and inconsistent performances. Franklin could rise up the depth chart and become a valuable asset, making him a strategic stash for fantasy managers aiming for upside without spending too much money on him, or fab, if you will. Now, my number 2 guy coming in is Wan'Dale Robinson, and I think he's a sleeper pick because, he had a modest 2023 with the New York Giants. Despite recording just 1 touchdown, Robinson showed flashes of potential with 60 receptions, 525 yards, and an impressive 78% catch rate. He played a significant role in the offense, leading the team in targets and receptions despite dealing with injuries himself, proving he can be reliable in the short and intermediate routes. Although his average depth of target was low at 5.3, it eliminates his big play opportunities, but I don't think Robinson is there to do that. They already have a big play guy now when they brought in Malik Neighbors, who we know who's a yards after the catch monster. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is going to fit in really nice as a safety valve for Daniel Jones. I think he's going to lead, finish second in targets on that team, and he's somebody I want you to monitor the developments in training camp, and especially the offensive line and how Daniel Jones's health is coming along, because Robinson's fantasy potential lays, on Daniel Jones's shoulders here. I think they have a good situation, a sleeper situation. I don't think they're going to come out and win a whole lot of games, but I think Robinson is a good stash in fantasy football 2024. Now, who's your number 1 wide receiver stash, Biggs?
What, you don't want me to talk about your guys? Okay, I won't.
Sure. Talk about my guys. Talk about them.
Well, in the Dynasty Trade Calculator Listener League that I'm in with John Bosch and the Fantasy Cares guys, I took Troy Franklin in the rookie draft for the orphan that I took over at the 208. So he was my second wide receiver in that rookie draft after Ladd McConkey. And then Wan'Dale Robinson I have in my home league. Love him. Target leader on the Giants. And who's he competing against this year? Malik Neighbors. All right. On the last episode of the Fantasy Forecast, woo pig suey Razorbacks. I did like an abridged version of the hog call. So there's 3 rounds of that, and it goes woo pig suey, woo pig suey, woo pig suey, Razorbacks. But for content's sake, I don't want to take up a whole bunch of your guys' time. I am targeting my spotlight at wide receiver stash is another Razorback. Let's talk about Treylon Burks. Possibly one of the saddest stories in the NFL right now. Treylon Burks set the world on fire with underclass breakout at the University of Arkansas. He goes into his junior year and absolutely torches SEC cornerbacks, NFL cornerbacks in Alabama. His open field running is something fun to watch. And if he gets a chance at some point to be able to show his long speed, Treylon Burks is going to be a dude. Unfortunately, this is the third year that we're waiting for Treylon Burks. In his rookie season, he dealt with a hamstring issue. He was a little bit overweight coming into camp. Those kinds of things happen. And then he was drafted by a team that inexplicably moved on from AJ Brown. Like, think of it if the Titans just held on to AJ Brown for the last 3 years, like how much better would they have been? Like, what the hell were you guys thinking? Anyway, so Treylon Burks is unfortunately anointed the replacement for AJ Brown, which is not something that you can expect out of a rookie wide receiver. A good rookie wide receiver season is 500, 600 yards. And AJ Brown is a 12 to 1,400 yard a season stud. So to expect Treylon Burks to immediately come in, learn the offense, and develop that rapport with Ryan Tannehill, and then eventually Malik Willis, neither of whom had enough progression in their reads to even find him. Terrible quarterback play, unlucky injury. And then last year, he was supposed to okay, fine. He's now in his second year. He's going to take over this offense. And right before camp starts, they go out and they grab DeAndre Hopkins, who is just like a target monster and Mr. Reliable. So Treylon Burks has to wait a little bit more. They bring in Will Levis, who can't hit the broadside of a barn from 2 feet away with a football. Not a great year for Will Levis. And then Burks gets hurt again, absolutely crushed, catches the ball and just gets destroyed and concussed. And it's taken him a while to, stop the buzzing in his ears, etc. Well, going into this year, the Titans went out and they picked up Calvin Ridley, and they went and all of a sudden Treylon Burks is on the outside looking in. The head coach said that he's going to have to find a spot on the team and special teams. I mean, seriously, the dude has talent, so much talent, but now Tyler Boyd's there too. So he's a wide receiver 4. There are no prospects for his ascendance, but there are a couple things. I've talked on shows before about the Keenan Allen and Tyler Lockett, and both of those guys didn't break out until year 4 or 5. Treylon Burks is kind of on that trajectory. What happens if the Titans decide that they want to spend on Brandon Ayuk, and all of a sudden they have Ayuk, Ridley, and DeAndre Hopkins as their wide receiver core for young quarterback Will Levis? Well, they can certainly ship Treylon Burks there. What if the Titans decide that they want to trade him to Buffalo, where who's catching balls in Buffalo? They need an X receiver. They need some, right? So there are scenarios in which Treylon Burks can get moved. There are scenarios in which somehow something happens to save his early career, and Treylon Burks' talent emerges, and we get to not be so sad about Treylon Burks. And I'm ready for that day to come.
I'm hoping that day is coming for you there, Biggs. Couple of those guys that have, strung your heartstrings over the last couple of years, Van Jefferson, Treylon Burks, and hopefully you get some redemption on both those guys because, they have opportunity. So hopefully Burks can get that opportunity. His talent's there. So,
I'm grabbing them every year. I don't care. Yeah. They're always droppable. That's the thing. It doesn't cost you anything late rounds because you can always drop them. So,
Yeah. So my number one guy that I'm stashing in the wide receiver rooms is he was drafted by the Washington Commanders at a pick 100 from Rice University. And yes, and I'm talking about Luke McCaffrey, and he's set to vie for the team's third wide receiver spot while Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson lead the depth chart. McCaffrey's early slot advantage offers him a clear path at substantial playing time. His versatility and athleticism showcased at Rice, including a 4.46 40-yard dash, positions him as a dynamic option in Washington's offense. I like his situation. The Commanders, they run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, so he's going to have some opportunity to get on the field early. Despite the Commanders' wealth of targets with McLaurin, Dotson, and Zach Ertz, alongside a potentially potent ground game that features Jaden Daniels and Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, McCaffrey's skill set positions him to earn the trust from quarterback and coaches. His knack for contested catches and contributions on short to medium routes could translate well in PPR leagues. McCaffrey's readiness to step into the slot, especially after Curtis Samuel's departure, combined with a standout Senior Bowl performance and athleticism, underscores his potential to exceed expectations. Luke McCaffrey brings a blend of athleticism, versatility, and opportunity that makes him an intriguing stash in 2024 redraft leagues, with the potential to carve out a significant role in Washington's offense and a football lineage backing his development. McCaffrey offers fantasy managers a calculated gamble for depth and upside at the wide receiver position as he refines his game and builds chemistry within the Commanders' offense. McCaffrey has the tools to emerge as a valuable asset on the field and in fantasy lineups alike. Luke McCaffrey is a hidden gem in 2024 fantasy football drafts, poised to shine as Washington's potential third wide receiver with slot skills and athleticism. He's smart, a low-risk choice for savvy managers eyeing upside in their lineups. So I'm high on Luke McCaffrey. I think he's got a lot of potential, like I mentioned. I like the wide receiver group there, and I think Jaden Daniels is set to explode. Biggs, what do you got for me here?
Well, when your dad is a 2-time Super Bowl winner, and your brother is the standout RB1 for the last 5 years, and you are more athletic than both of them, the only downside to Luke McCaffrey is the fact that he switched positions from quarterback to wide receiver, so he doesn't have the reps. But if you want to count on a guy that doesn't have the reps, who better than somebody who's the son of a Super Bowl winning wide receiver and Christian McCaffrey's younger brother? That it makes some of those things he doesn't have the rep, a little bit more meaningless, because these guys are constantly working. They're not going anywhere. They're all of their off-season time is spent route running and things like that. It's not that the guy doesn't know how to play football. It's just that he doesn't have 1,000 snaps at wide receiver. He only has 500. But you. Again, you could do worse, and I think that's the theme of these stash shows: is you could do worse. And I love Luke McCaffrey. When they were at the combine, Daniel Jeremiah was on the mic, and he comped Luke McCaffrey to Garrett Wilson. I mean, come on, physically he's Garrett Wilson, and yeah, so he's a great stash.
Yeah, buddy. All right, man. Well, that ends this episode of our stashes at the wide receiver group. Next time we're going to be talking about running backs.
Sure are.
And speaking about running back, we're going to be running back to the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio, where you're going to see our logo plastered all over the place as the main sponsor. The Fantasy Forecast is going to be representing. Biggs and I will be there, and you can catch our swag. If you want to check out, the forecast stuff or, the Fantasy Advice Network swag, go to the Streamlab and you'll be able to find our stuff there. Biggs, tell our viewers where they can find your stuff and anything that you got on the agenda in the upcoming little while here, bud.
Well, if you go back and you watch the first show in this stash series where we did quarterbacks and tight ends, I told you where you could find me.
at BigBoneded FFB
Yeah.
on the Twitter box.
That's where.
And I'm FF Canuck 99. So from all of us here, Biggs, what do you got?
We hope you win.
Hope you win.